Thank you everyone for coming. It's uh, it's a great privilege for me to be moderating this panel of incredible people, humble to the core, very successful in their professional careers, and how now they are helping build a very different India. I would like to welcome Ajit Isaac. On the stage, and once they're settled, I'll like to tell you a little bit more about them. And लैन के बारे में तो सुना ही होगा. Lan is a familiar face in all such events, and he's very kind with his time. Thank you for making the time to be with us. Given it is a coincidence that we have two people here who are not only running very large family offices, but are also doing a lot of work in philanthropy. And so the theme of this panel discussion is, how endowments and family offices are looking at, investments and what drives them and what are some of their goals, what do they want to accomplish, and so on and so forth. But let me quickly introduce the two, panelists here. I'll start with Ajit. He runs 3 companies which are listed, employs over 600,000 people, and these 3 companies generate revenues of over $2 billion. He's a first-generation entrepreneur, worked for the first decade of his life and then started Quest Corp. And in the last couple of years, has been doing a lot of good work. His 2 foundations are doing incredible work, in fact. He's teamed up with IISc and Ashoka University. He's one of the co-founders of Ashoka University. And, we thought people like him, inspire us, will inspire a lot of people to do good, because when we have, we can give. A little bit more about Ajit. Of course, very deeply committed to social impact. Supports over 16,000 students across 75 government-run schools. Has set up the Ajit Isaac Foundation at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and also does a lot of work with CMC Vellore to establish a pediatric specialty center in collaboration with Fairfax and Quest. He also has a partnership with Johns Hopkins University and is currently developing a 63-bed palliative care center in Karnataka. He is on the board of Karnataka Technology and Innovation Museum Foundation, St. Joseph's University, and like I said, a co-founder of Ashoka University, which is doing incredible work and was one of the unique universities and concepts way back. Ajit is interestingly a gold medalist. I did not know this about you, Ajit. And a British Chevening scholar. Very honored to have you with us today. We all know LAN. Azim Premji Foundation is deeply invested in several AIFs and is a very familiar face in conferences and events. What I learned recently is that he was also a Karnataka under 17 cricket player. And I think life took the better of him. And I don't know if you still play cricket, but at least you must be following it. And, the entire Premji ecosystem is so unassuming, it is so humble, it is so down to earth. Lan is one of those rare individuals who became a doctorate at the age of 51, but decides not to use that title of a doctor. But Lan, that's inspirational that you pursued, your eagerness for knowledge. Lan is the Chief Endowment Officer of Azim Premji Foundation. We all know Azim Premji Foundation is the largest endowment from India, $21 billion, probably more. I may have got a couple of $1 billion off. And the third largest endowment in the world. And, I take so much pride that there is an Indian who had the courage to give away so much wealth for the country. And the Azim Premji Foundation does not publish a journal of all the good deed that they do. They keep a very low profile, but I can tell you there are thousands of programs in, maybe 20, 25 states that they run. And the more recent one, which I was like completely appreciative of, is that they've started this program to educate girls to seek out college education. And the entitlement or the eligibility criteria for that is so basic. Any girl, private college, government college, just has to take admission in the first year, and the foundation gives 30,000 rupees of support for tuition and everything else for the entire duration of the program. And I think now it has been expanded to how many girls now? 2.5 lakh girls are being supported through this program. And it was launched very recently, but it is one of the biggest initiative. And like they say, if there's a woman in the house who's educated, then the entire generation, will do better. So, phenomenal work there. In terms of responsibilities, as Chief Endowment Officer, he's responsible for overseeing the foundation's endowment corpus and ensuring its growth and sustainability to support long-term philanthropic work, especially in education and human development, which is in line with, Premji Foundation's objectives, which is to build a just, equitable, humane, and sustainable society focused on deep, long-term social impact in India. So thank you, Lan. You guys inspire us, and I hope, for many of us and for many Indians, hope we can, contribute towards philanthropy in the same way that you guys are able to do, however small it may be. But I think it is very important, and together we'll build this nation. So I'll get into a few questions. The Premji Foundation, of course, is now 25 years old. But Ajit, you started this journey about 4 or 5 years ago. And, I would love to know, and the audience would love to know, what inspired you and what are some of the goals and objectives of your foundation? What is close to your heart?
So first, congrats to Trifecta for making it across 10 years. It's a milestone period in an organization's journey, and once you cross 10, lots of other things come more easily. So your first 10 are the most difficult ones usually.
Thank you.
Well done. it's been now 25 years since I've been an entrepreneur. My company itself is now about 17, 18 years old. And we had an IPO in 2016, and then another IPP, a follow-on public financing round in 2017. In both of which I did not participate, but I found liquidity in some other family office related investments that I'd made. We've had a tradition of tithe in our family. Tithe is the concept of giving a component of your, a percentage of your incomes to charitable causes every year. My parents used to do it, so it's a tradition that we've continued. So it used to be something that we were continually doing. And when some of these liquidity events happened and we were able to harvest some, returns from it, we decided to look at initiatives over a period of time. I come from a background of employment from Quest. We employ a large number of people there. We monetize the asset. We built two companies separately, a tech company and an infra service company later on, both of which also employ a significantly large number of headcount. So one of the things that occurred to our family was that to be in employment, education, health, and the access to opportunities is critical. I mean, if you're an individual, you need to be skilled, you need to have a certain set of ability, you need to also be in good health, and you need to find opportunity. So we set out to be able to build a platform where we are skilling people, we're educating people, and we are also providing them public health related initiatives. That's how we started focusing on education, health, and providing initiatives. So providing opportunities. So over this conversation, maybe I'll give you some more insights into what providing initiatives means.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You talked about the family had this culture or philosophy of giving. A part of the only other community I know is the Sikhs in Punjab, who have, and these are the more traditional Sikhs who are still vegetarian, who give away 10% of their wealth to the gurdwaras and for charity and so on and so forth. But it's incredible that your family has been doing this. Is this a more a community thing, or is this just a family thing?
So first, we are not vegetarian. We
that's fine.
Eat everything that moves. But in the community, there is a sort of unwritten practice that you give this. It's not like mandated. It's not obligatory, but we kind of a large part of the community does this.
Interesting. Lan, this one is for you. How do you guys pick, where you want to focus on in terms of sectors, geography, age group? And which are some of the areas you would not allocate resources or let other people, do that? And do you work with the government very closely in many of these initiatives?
Sure. Again, first of all, congrats. I'm saying to us, because we've also been partners from day one. So it's 10 years for us as well with Trifecta. It's an absolutely great moment for us. So it's lovely to be here. To the question, Nilesh, couple of things. One is that the area you choose, I think there are two parts to it. First, we're fortunate we have a university which a good research department. So we have a good idea of the problems in the country. And the scale of these problems in the country. India is a very vast country with every problem being extremely very vast. We do all that, and every year we bring a list of things to the board. But final decision is one what I call euphemistically the tear and anger test. If there's a problem that moves you to tears or makes you very angry with the state of mind, that's the one you need to go, because that's where your heart is. And like Ajit said, these are things you got to do from your heart. The money and the stuff is enabler. You bring management, you bring processes. They're all enablers, but it's got to be something close to your heart. So It's a lot of this. And therefore, the part of your second question is, I don't think we can ever say that we will never do anything ever. So if I look at what we have, if I look in the past 15 years, what has been brought to the board and not found favor. For example, we had a proposal to set up a, a Smithsonian in India. Okay, India doesn't have something of that kind of a scale, but it didn't. For the in the same one, in the same board meeting, there was also a proposal on dealing with trafficking of women. Clearly, the board just went and said, "Look, let's focus on this," because that moved them the tear and anger, cleared the tear and anger test much faster. Having said that, we have done a few things in art and culture over years. We can talk about it later. So there's nothing that we do, but every year it's a list that we revisit, revise, and something gets added all the time. Third thing is, we are very clear that we will work closely with governments everywhere. There are three reasons for working with government. No one can match the resources that the government has. I mean, all said and done, whatever be at the size of our endowment will be a fraction to the annual union budget of the government. So the resources that the government has is incredible. Two, in a democracy, a government has the highest credibility with the community. So anything that's government, the community buys in a lot more easier. And third, because of its very nature, they have the best reach. So it's always good to partner with the government. Most governments want to partner with you. Their problem is one of capability. They don't understand the issues on the ground because government officials get transferred and many. But government partnership is very critical for us. We bring in capability, some amount of money, but the government is very important for us.
I agree with you completely. And, by the way, I understand you guys got involved with the Jaipur Foot. And D.R. Mehta is my uncle, and he speaks very highly of you guys. And how you have helped him, expand. It's an initiative that has supported thousands and thousands of people. But, like any initiative, always constrained for funds and the funds provided by you. And so you do work with several organizations, institutions.
Absolutely. So far we have worked with approximately 1,600 not-for-profits in India. We are actively working with about 1,000 of them. In the last 15 years that we've been doing grants, there's been about 1,600. So actively we have 100. And every year we do approximately something like about multiple grants to same organization. We'll do something like about 1,000 grants every year.
Phenomenal. Ajit, how do you measure impact? And what kind of governance structure, have you built to measure the impact and the issues that you are, after? How do you make sure that, the initiatives are actually resulting in, meaningful
Stuff on the ground.
Yeah, ground.
So this is it's a key part of the giving process, that you're able to actually see what kind of impact that you're able to derive from the investments you're making. At the end of the day, we must really understand that some of these grants that you write, or all of these grants that you write, is finally risk capital. It carries sometimes much greater risk than what you have in investing in commercial situations, one. And second, the nature of this is, again, long term. Changes don't happen overnight. So you have to accept these two realities first when you get into it. The second point I want to bring out is that if you take our school children project, we're involved with, as Nilesh was saying, close to about 50 odd schools now, about 20,000 kids we help with educating. When we started working with the government schools, and I endorse what Lance said about working with the government, because working with the government gives you access to the most fringe areas of society sometimes also. So when we started working with the government schools, we found that average attendance in these schools was maybe between 130 to 140 kids per day. And over a period of, let's say, 3 to 4 years after we started working with the schools, average attendance reached about 200 to 220. One. Second is dropout levels came down. So the number of kids dropping out between, let's say, class 4 to class 10 dropped by at least about 30 to 40%. Third, and most significantly, girl students' participation in schools increased. Previously, before we started getting involved, the toilets would not have doors sometimes. And therefore, for reasons of privacy, girl students find it difficult to use a toilet and they stopped coming to school. So when the conditions changed, girl students were encouraged to come back to school. And lastly, when you do this over a period of time, we've done this project now for about almost 10 years. We found our first set of doctors, engineers, lawyers coming out of these schools, and that's a big win to see. Corporation schools produce engineers, lawyers, and we take it through. If some of them are unable to fund their education thereafter, also we help them. So that's one area of impact that we are able to showcase here. The second one is we also did a project in the area of criminal justice, of the reform of the criminal law system. So, for example, in the state of Tamil Nadu, we funded changes in state laws that will help decriminalize the system. So, a number of laws carry imprisonment, and these were made in times when society was different, and those laws have to be now changed. I mean, if you don't pay a rent for, let's say, 3 successive months, there's some states which have laws that you can be imprisoned. So, obviously, non-payment of rent does not mean imprisonment. So, we've been able to persuade some governments on changes of their laws. And lastly, in the area of building institutions, we have 3 institutions that we've built. One is the pediatric hospital at CMC Vellore, which is a 420-bed multi-specialty, 20 subspecialization hospital. There, we've been able to bring in the Sick Kids Hospital from Toronto as a partner to it. Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto is among the 3 best pediatric hospitals. This will perhaps be India's largest pediatric hospital facility. So it's a project of about almost 300 to 400 crores almost. And happy to note that later on, the Azim Premji Foundation followed through with a 500 crore check for a new hospital in Chittor, one of the single largest checks written for charitable causes. So, one thing leads to another sometimes. So, impact is sometimes immediate, sometimes it's follow-on, sometimes it's institution building. But you should be able to, when you get in, you should be able to have a frame of reference in your mind. What do you want to get out of it? And then have a scorecard against which you can mark this. The only other point I'd like to add here is that we've kept our foundation very small. We've got just 4 or 5 people in our foundation, but we work extensively with partners. So we chose CMC Vellore to partner with for the pediatric hospital, Ashoka University to set up a public policy institute, IISc for the Center for Public Health, and Johns Hopkins, which is perhaps the world's best teaching hospital, to set up a palliative care center. So in a sense, what we've transferred is our responsibility for running these projects to these institutes. So we don't run these institutes. They sort of participate in the governance, etc. We are willing partners in the process. We usually have a board seat in each of them, and we're able to, if not move the needle entirely, influence the thinking about what needs to be done. And typically, we want it to be decentralized. We don't want to be involved with the day-to-day running, but agree on a certain framework that these partnerships will deliver. So that's how we've built these institutes and partnerships and the governance system around it.
Yeah, phenomenal. And I think some of these institutions, you said they are the best in their area of work. So, I mean, you can obviously, magnify the outcomes. And it's interesting, at the core, we've come to realize that kids do want education, and it's just that infrastructure which is missing. And, at least in the area of toilets for young girls, I think the Supreme Court has also recently taken cognizance and said this has to be made integral to every school. Lan, question for you. What are the 2-3 design choices in a family office endowment that matter? Asset allocation, spending rule, risk management, governance.
So the first is the goal of the family office. And I'll indulge me as I explain. One is there is a set of family offices that want to fund intergenerational wealth transfer. There are a set of family offices that want to maintain a family lifestyle. Then there are a set of people who have philanthropic objective. Even within philanthropic objective, there are people who like to build assets and institution, and there are others who would like to have a running program that requires. Each of these has implications on the cash flows that you need to generate and the period for which you want to compound. Intergenerational can be completely illiquid and can be high risk, and you can do it for a 7-10 years kind of thing, versus something that you want to fund literally every month. You got to have a high degree of liquidity and you got to have cash flows regularly coming in. So once the goal is clear, and it takes a lot of time to get that clarity, and very often it's never one of these, right? It's a combination of these. Then you got to figure out what's the proportion. Accordingly, you go to asset allocation. The second big step is getting the asset allocation right, because there's enough studies that show globally that you have your asset mix right and you stick to that broad range for a very long period of time, you will generate sufficient resources to fund whatever be your objectives. Okay? So first do that, and third, have the discipline to stick to that and not get drowned in noise. Because when you are, especially in market like India, there are regular flavors of season. XYZ asset class will be, oh my God, you're not in that. When I know global endowments, I joke that every 2 years they have something, okay, what's your crypto strategy? Once that is done, they say, okay, what's your AI strategy? In between, what's your strategy to get out of China? And then what's your strategy to get into India? You can't be tweaking long-term asset allocation on a quarterly or an annual basis. So sticking to that is the third most.
Those are more tactical decisions.
Yeah, you can always, part of an asset allocation, you can always say that there is some proportion which I will use for a tactical purpose, because it's opportunistic and you must do it if you're a smart investor. But the core is, if you have long-term goal, you align your investments to long-term goals. That's true for family offices, that's true for endowments.
Makes sense. We'll just do 2 more questions, one for each of you, and then close this session. If a successful founder or family office here wanted to build an endowment, what are the most important suggestions from your experience, Ajit?
Well, I think the first suggestion I would give him is to ensure that he can run his business full time without the endowment creeping in on his time, because he also has a responsibility to shareholders, etc. So in this direction, I have a framework that I've built for myself, which I'll share. There are only 3 issues that I look for in my company. One is capital allocation, performance goal setting, and leadership development. So who runs the business and who delivers it? Where do we put our money and what do we make out of it? Everything else is business to us. That's the first thing. Second is have independent boards that are equipped with competence and independence, true independence, to be able to guide and decide about the company's progress. And the third thing is that in your own endowment, you should also have some principles around this. For example, how do you want your giving to be? And my recommendation is that you start early, you give regularly, and you use variable income. For example, if you have dividend inflows, use that a lot, so the core stays intact. And when you give money, you must be prepared for surprises also, because many of these projects don't come back with the impact that you want. So you must be prepared for situations where it does not deliver what you're getting. And the last thing is that, like Lance said, you must select the areas that you want to be in and your principle of giving. And the tear and anger principle is a terrific example of how you decide where to give. And stick to that. Otherwise, you will have requests come to you every day once people know that you are in that mode, and then you will become an ATM machine. So it's the choice that you have to make about which ones you want to be in and which ones you don't.
Super. Lan, this one's for you. This is the last question of the panel today. For endowments and family offices, How should one think about private markets and alternatives as capital compounding engines? You, of course, have been investing in alternates for many years.
Um, yeah, I'll try to keep it brief because it's a very it's a question that can be a panel by itself. Here's what it is. I think you've got to look at what that asset class inherent nature is. Is it a core compounding engine, or is it a cash flow engine, or is it a combination of both? And I think again, you've everything to me goes back to your original objective. I think alternatives are extremely important, and these are asset classes that are emerging, and therefore they give you a relatively better risk adjusted returns than your normal plain vanilla kind of assets. At the same time, they also give you tremendous flexibility. You can have a combination of decent regular cash flows with good capital appreciation if you invest rightly with the right partners. And therefore, you must, I think, alternatives, I think, should be a must in every endowment portfolio. Having said that, my only submission would be the endowment team must invest to understand that asset class, because asset classes, none of the asset classes have a smooth ride either way, one way up or one way down. You've got to be able to understand what's happening and make your decision based on what I call a variation from a talk do ratio. If the asset class has a particular strategy and the core thesis of the strategy is changed, that's when you will revisit it. Otherwise, most asset classes should tend to be a long-term one, and alternatives is very much absolutely out there.
I agree with you. And Lan, you've and Ajit, both of you have been, supporters and investors in our funds over the last 10 years. So thank you for that support, and thank you for inspiring us to do all this great work. Thank you for, helping us better understand, what you're doing on the philanthropy side. So really grateful.